we are obviously delighted and very excited about the road ahead. It's been a long time coming, not just for ZAR X, but obviously for capital market space in South Africa in general. I mean, it's been over half a century that there hasn't been a competitor to the JSE, and we're obviously delighted to be the first one to fill that space. Quite simply, in our environment, you need to apply to become a market participant. Effectively, what we've done is we've cast the net quite wide, so traditional stockbroking firms, and then obviously financial services providers. So obviously you need to be licensed. You can't just trade directly on the market. It's a requirement of the Financial Markets Act that you must use, for lack of a better word, a broker to transact in ZAR X. And we are obviously engaging with a number of firms wanting to get onto the ZAR X platform. And we obviously, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. It's a new exchange. So there's, the guys are saying, bring us product, and the listing guys are saying, well, do we have distribution? The beauty with the Senvest is that they did not need to raise capital, and as a result, they were the ideal first listing for us. Where we had our very first trade, and that matched this morning and settled and cleared within 10 seconds, which is basically a record for us. It's the fastest we've ever managed to do that. As I was saying, the very first trade went through this morning, and because our market is pre-funded on the buying side, and then on the selling side, sellers have to bring in their securities beforehand. So none of the admin happens post the event. So effectively, when you get into a ZAR X market context, the buyer on screen is a very real buyer because he's got money in their account, and the seller has got shares in his account. So the minute a match happens, that happens instantaneously. So effectively, it's T-real settlement, T-real time, compared to most global exchanges, including the JSE, sitting at T+3. But globally, it's moving towards T+1 and probably T0, where we are already. We just felt, let's employ global best practice and be there first. You can't do a naked short. What that means is sell shares you don't own and then try and get them post the event. So you can do a short, but you need to have securities in your account. It's fairly simple. So in our environment, you need to do all the admin beforehand, and that's how we get the settlement time so quick. That's a very good question, and it's purely dependent on the underlying security. So for example, Senvest is an unrestricted share. In other words, anybody can buy and sell that share. So it's completely open to the investing public. Unlike Senvest Beleggings, which is the holding company, Senvest Beleggings own 52% of Senvest. But there's a restriction there in the sense that you can only be a bona fide farmer to buy and sell that share. So obviously in Senvest Beleggings, the investor universe is much smaller compared to Senvest. So obviously by definition, the volumes will be less in Beleggings than in Senvest. So it's purely a function of the value proposition of the underlying security. Is it cheap? Is it expensive? And how liquid is the share? So it'll be a bit of a mixed bag, and we completely anticipate that to be the case. The investment case is quite simple. We have a very effective and rapid and quite a clear listings process. So in a nutshell, a company would approach us, we would assess it using our principles-based listing requirements. And that's critical because we don't have an enormous set of rules. We apply a number of principles. So for example, as set out in King 4, where they say, if you cannot comply with a certain set of rules, justify it to us. And if that justification is fair and reasonable, we'll consider it. So on that basis, you don't have to now bend over backwards to comply with a set of rules that don't really apply to you. That's the first thing. The second thing is we're going to make this market very accessible to the investing public. So on the ZAR X website, you will have access to free market prices in real time, and you will see depth, which is not available anywhere else. So you don't have to go anywhere fancy. to see what a share is doing on ZAR X. So what does that do? It drives investor interest in your company directly, and by its very nature, people will then get engaged simply because it's for free. So we give free custody to investors, making it simple and cost effective for them. And obviously the minute you have investors, now you can raise capital, and that's the value proposition. We've got another 5 in the pipeline, and we will be putting out press releases in the course of the next 2 weeks to actually communicate that to the market. That's actually quite a good question, in the sense that we, as I alluded to earlier, it depends on the underlying company. So obviously, if your liquidity ratios, and liquidity ratio is a percentage of the market cap that's trading. So if it's sitting at 5%, which is quite low, then you'd obviously by definition need more, because in ZAR X, our primary revenue driver is in fact trading fees. We don't really make money on listing fees and selling data to the public and so on and so forth, because all those things are free. So in a nutshell, it would depend on the liquidity levels of the underlying companies. So you can now see that the focus for ZAR X is on being able to list quality companies that will trade effectively. And that is the crux. So we could probably do a big 10 billion or 15 billion rand listing, and the thing has huge amounts of liquidity, and next thing, we kicking into profit, because after all, we're still a startup. I think on a very niche basis, we are bringing very focused new products to the market. So to the extent that another exchange has a very niched focused value proposition, yes, I do think so. But just to have another general exchange, I think the space is quite limited, yes. In a word, no. We've actually been quite busy onboarding the 2 listings on ZAR X. So we have been deeply engaged in the listings process, which obviously got finalized. And on the back of that, we had the successful listing of Senvest and Senvest Bell today.